And I believe we're live now. So to all my guests, please open your microphones and cameras. And let me welcome all our live audience from around the world, ladies and gentlemen. We're live now. Sorry, so I have to, guests, as usual, I have to mute myself, otherwise it doesn't work. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to host the 6th installment in the ICAIR webinar series. This time we'll be talking about Rehabilitation 4.0. This is Claudio speaking, and I hope you have a pleasant time. Please do not forget to, subscribe to our channel, like the video and all the others, which are recorded for your perusal on the channel itself, and ask questions through the YouTube chat. It's available to you. I'll be quick in relay your questions to our distinguished guests. So, without much further ado, Zen, my co-moderator or the moderator today, will you please start introducing our guests?
Thank you, Claudio. And thank you for everybody for attending this live streaming. So today, we are very honored to have very distinguished speakers from all over the world. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all of you from different parts of the world. So I will quickly introduce everybody and maybe briefly starting from myself. I'm Zen KOH, I'm from ICAIR. And also, I'm also representing Motors Academy and the UH and KITE as advisors. So today we have speakers from Zurich, ETH, Professor Robert Rina, Professor Ree from UCL, and Professor Hyung-Soon from KITE. So I will briefly, let each of them introduce themselves. Maybe Claudio, you want to finish off by introduce your background as well before we start this discussion topic. Yeah, Ree, you want to start first?
I'm afraid people are sick of seeing my face every time in the webinars now, but so this is Claudio Castellini speaking. I lead the Assistive Intelligent Robotics group at the University of Erlangen-Nuremberg in the north of the south of Germany. We deal with control systems and human-machine interaction for all kinds of assistive robots, mainly upper limb prosthetics. And we've been moving in the past few years to virtual reality, lower limb prosthetics, and exoskeletons as well.
Thanks. Robert, do you want to start first?
Thank you. Yes, I'm Robert Rina. I'm professor of sensory motor systems at ETH Zurich, and I'm also professor of rehabilitation robotics at the Biogrist University Hospital. And we develop therapy devices, robots for training, for example, in stroke and neurology. We also develop assistive devices such as exoskeletons, prostheses, wheelchairs. And I'm also the inventor and initiator of the Cyberthlon, a competition for people with disabilities using robotic devices.
Thanks, Robert. Hyung-Soon, you want to say a few words about yourself?
Okay, thank you. I'm Hyung-Soon Park from South Korea. I'm in KITE and in the mechanical engineering department, and I run Neurorehabilitation engineering lab, and we do any research that helps people, but specifically we do hands mostly. We develop wearable hand devices and control of robotic processes for the hand.
Thanks, Hyung-Soon. Ree, last but not least, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Ree Loureiro. I'm a professor of surgical and rehabilitation engineering at University College London, where I lead the Department of Orthopedics and Musculoskeletal Science and also the ICAIR Create Center. Recently, I've been appointed Research Director of the National Rehabilitation Center, which is the first NHS rehabilitation hospital in the UK. So a very exciting initiative. So I'm helping this new hospital to set up the national agenda for rehabilitation. And I'm the co-founding and past president of the ICAIR consortium, which Robert Rina is currently the president. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today, this evening, and this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. So today we will discuss a very interesting topic. I believe we all agree that we're at a crossroad of innovation and patient care. It's important always to involve patients in the technologies that we develop. So today's our topic is about Rehabilitation 4.0, a new concept about integrating the latest technologies like AI, VR, robotics to seamlessly create an interoperable system that can reshape the treatment paradigms and enhance clinical outcomes. So I think this is a rather interesting topic. We've been talking about it. So briefly, interoperability is basically in the context of rehab, the ability to connect different systems, devices to communicate, to exchange data, and work together seamlessly. So if you look at neurorehabilitation, it means that technologies like robotic exoskeletons, virtual reality platform, patient monitoring tools can integrate smoothly and sharing real-time informations and patient data to support coordinated and efficient care. So today we have a panel form discussions where our three distinguished speakers will discuss a couple of topics from the idea of this rehabilitation, the need for the critical need of interdisciplinary collaborations, and then we will discuss maybe the future trend of the technologies. So together with me, my co-moderator Claudio will raise some questions for speakers to discuss. So the audience, please feel free to raise any questions, and Claudio will relate it to the speakers, and we can stop any time to address any questions that you may have raised. So without further ado, I will invite my co-moderator, Claudio, to start this discussion.
If there's any question from the audience, I will raise my hand physically so you can all see that. Before I even start, that reminds me of this series of webinars is sponsored and supported by the ICAIR, so the International Consortium on Rehabilitation Robotics. But we are also the International Conference on Rehabilitation Robotics this year, being part, as usual now, from a few years, of the Rehab Week 2025 in Chicago at the, organized by the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. So I invite all people in the audience and all those who are interested in the topic to subscribe to the conference and come to Chicago. It's going to be a great event and great fun, as it has always been. So, right. So the only keyword we were not really sure about here is interoperability. Now I understand this means that we do have a number of ways to improve our therapies, right? So there are robots, there's AI, there's more and more AI everywhere nowadays, and of course this is entering our systems as well, supposed to facilitate communication with the therapists, with the patients, and why not help the therapy go ahead. Now, interoperability of different robotic systems, maybe virtual reality and AI, that becomes quite a challenge, especially if you want to bring this to, let's say, to the commercial world. I have really no idea where to start from, so maybe our hosts, our guests can start. Hui, what would be your take on that? Let me throw in a simple example. We have a rehabilitation exoskeleton, and now we can put a VR headset on our patient so that the patient sees something and gets motivated to carry on the therapy and improve his own status across the days and weeks. How do we have these two systems talk to each other, maybe mediated by an artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't we go a little bit on a journey through memory lane, because rehabilitation and rehabilitation technology has been in the making for the last 30 years. And for me, in particular, it's been very exciting because I still remember over 3 decades ago, we've seen a dramatic transformation. I mean, in the early 90s, rehabilitation was primarily therapist-led and it was manual techniques. And there was very limited technological support. Mind you, computers back then were full houses, if you remember. Now we have computers in our pockets. But I think then thinking about the 2000s, where we saw the emergence of early robotics, we had functional electrical stimulation applied clinically, basic virtual reality applications that was aiming to aid recovery and so on. And then by the 2010s, then we got the AI coming in more pronounced. We had the machine learning techniques being adapted. Wearable technologies became part of reshaping what we call neurorehabilitation. And this all allows us for real-time data collection and adaptive therapy models. Today, all right, let's start now. Rehabilitation 4.0, as Zen put it, integrates all of this, integrates AI-driven personalized robotics therapies, interconnected systems to enhance recovery. And obviously, what we want is paving the way for continuous data-driven patient care. So if we start from this, so where do we see the next 30 years going? I have my vision. I don't know about you.
Okay, do you think you can sketch this vision in, I'm going to give you 1.5 minutes? That's a challenge.
Okay, so Rehabilitation 4.0, in my view, represents definitely a paradigm shift in neurorehabilitation. So we're leveraging AI, we're leveraging robotics, we're leveraging interconnected systems to enhance patient recovery. So the evolution moves beyond the traditional rehab to data-driven, adaptive, more effective treatment models. So with that, we can think of moving from traditional to transformative. So integrating smart automation, AI, Internet of Things, we haven't talked about that yet, but I hope we will, to personalized therapy, moving beyond manual methods to data-driven rehabilitation. And then obviously, the AI, the elephant in the room, and the robotics that aim to revolutionize care. So machine learning and robotic assistance can and must provide real-time adjustments and should optimize patient outcomes and accelerate recovery. But then, the icing on the cake we should not forget is interoperability for seamless integration. So connecting all these devices and systems enhances data flow, and obviously ensuring holistic treatment strategies across rehabilitation centers is paramount. So I leave it there for others to comment on.
And then we have to further topics to explore, and interoperability gets into that. So ethical, regulatory, and safety consideration, and creating an ecosystem. So how do you have systems talk to each other once they're out in the world? Robert, what would be your take on this?
Yes, so everyone speaks about artificial intelligence nowadays, not only in our field, but everywhere. On the one hand, that's justified because we have new technologies, new generative AI based on deep learning or language-based models, and that's impressive. On the other hand, we deal with AI since many decades. We're using conventional AI to, for example, let our robots predict or recognize the movement which the user wants to do, the intention to detect, or the step to be done by a wearable robot or by any kind of therapy robot. But what is new? I mean, when we speak only about the conventional AI, which is, the algorithms are old, actually, to be honest. But what's new now is that we are much better connected through the internet. This enables us to enlarge the sizes of our databases by many magnitudes, and we have the better codes, with better, not new, but with better, I would say, more efficient algorithms, which allow us now to much better use the AI for our problems. A typical new application which comes out now more and more is not only to control the robots, but also to use data from patients on their daily life or during treatment while they are hospitalized, and use this monitoring data, which can include movement data, force data on the pressure mat, cardiovascular data, physiological data, electrophysiological data, all data which is maybe rather not too complicated to measure, put them into these new deep learning algorithms, and then get out predictors for certain diseases or symptoms. And if we can predict certain symptoms, it's not a big step to also avoid them and do prevention with it. So I think there are great chances. I don't know so many applications using generative AI, like this ChatGPT stuff. Certainly as well for maybe informing patients, relatives about medical issues, but I think there's many more.
Sounds to me that this is transitioning from detecting a user's intent to move to taking care of the user more in general, like on one level, shaping the therapy, making it harder or simpler as the AI deems that the participant is making progress or that's too difficult, as well as connecting the therapist, the patient, the machine, and possibly remote doctors in the typical telemedicine scenario, and the relations and friends of the patient around.
I agree.
Yeah. Hyung-Sung, what is your take on the topic?
Yeah, when you mentioned about the example of exoskeleton with virtual reality, for example, I just imagine the situation that a patient at home using virtual reality glass and wearing the robot for having the physical therapy. And, the engineering systems I'm an engineer, so from engineering viewpoint, all the systems have input and output. For interoperability, we need to define the input of one engineering system should receive the output from the former engineering system, so then they can be compatible each other. So for example, the exoskeleton robot outputs position and force data, and maybe the vision data if there's a camera, and then the vision camera taking care of the facial expression of the patient, whether the patient is doing well or motivated or not. Then the virtual reality or the vision system can tell the robot to react differently. Then that's all parameter adjustment in engineering sense. So the robotic device can be controlled in a different way if the AI adjusts the parameter differently for motivating the patient. So in that way, the AI and the interoperability can be considered important in those setup. And maybe doctor and physical therapist can monitor that the physical therapy at home, and then they can interrupt, or they can give something by natural language, and then AI can understand what it means to adjust the parameters of the engineering system. So that can be the future, I think, but I'm not sure whether it's done yet, but maybe somebody's doing.
Sounds like that. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, we do have different devices in our lab, and we've built our own infrastructure for letting them communicate to one another. We have our own protocol, and we're happy about that. But then once this goes beyond our lab, it's gonna be nil, right? So everything needs to be redone from scratch. That's a very interesting set of answers. Thank you very much. Zen, off to you for the second one.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing your views. Like Ree just shared about the evolution of rehabilitation, I think a lot of challenges we are facing over the last 3 decades or so. Myself, I probably have been wearing slightly different hat. I'm no longer in academia. I was in the industry. I started many companies and run some of them. I'm very involved in associations. And one of the associations that I represent is ICAIR, which is the body for all the industry companies. So in the past, some of the biggest challenge that we have is to introduce the technology to the market, basically creating a market when the market doesn't exist, and actually have to educate the markets, let the market understand that, what, robotics and technologies are not going to take away your job, but it's going to be a good tool, a complementary tool for your job. But some of the challenges still exist, the cost, the reimbursement, and the complexity. So we had to solve the accessibility issue, the cost issue, and the biggest challenge of all is the complexity of the diverse rehabilitation technologies. As we continue to move forward, there are more and more new technologies. As Robert mentioned, AI is coming into play. People get excited. And as you know, Hyung-Sun mentioned, the VR combining the exoskeleton, as Ree mentioned, they're looking at data sharings. Everybody have their needs, but end of the day, we need to create good patient outcome. So the second topics that I really want to discuss with all of you is how can we challenge and address these challenges, create strategies to reduce the complexity of such a diverse range of rehabilitation technologies. And we are proposing, and we have discussed before, to consolidate some of these technologies to create more efficient data integration and treatment delivery. Because end of the day, I think all of us here are engineers, but our receiving audience are clinicians and patients. So from clinician point of view, they are looking at clinical integrations of technology into their current clinical pathway. So the last thing they want is a very complex system they have to spend even more time to use when they treat the patient. They have already too much to do. So they don't want a complex system. You know, they want a system where they press the button, the patient come out walking. That does not exist yet, maybe in the future. But as engineers, as researchers, as from the industries, can we help to create such a simple system through consolidation? So my questions to our speakers, maybe starting from Ree, is what do you think? How can we reduce this complexity? How can we create something like a consolidating system to consolidate some of these technologies to make it easier for the clinical professions to adopt and adapt this technology?
I agree, Zen, that consolidating technologies can simplify workflows and can potentially even reduce inefficiencies and improve the patient outcomes. And that could be through better data sharing or optimized treatment plans, as you highlighted. I would say I would probably think about three main things, really. How we overcome fragmentation is I think, a big question here. And so we could think about merging multiple rehab technologies into unified platforms, and there are people already leading the way. And this hopefully will reduce inefficiencies and even enhance usability. And I'm thinking about usability not just from the patient point of view, but from the clinical point of view. And then I think also the other challenge for me is data integration, and particularly for personalized care. That's what rehabilitation is about, after all. So consolidating systems that improve interoperability and then enabling AI-driven insights for adaptive rehabilitation is something that we should really maybe start discussing in more detail, how we do it as a community. And then lastly, I think it has to be related to cost. And let me rephrase, related to resource efficiency. So I think streamlining obviously minimizes that redundancy and also allows clinicians to focus more on patient care rather than on system management, which has been a big bottleneck thus far. That's what I think we should really. Those three things for me are quite important, and how we come together as a community over the next few years, I think is going to be crucial.
Thanks, Ree. I agree with you, especially at the last point, you know, the cost. We have been in discussions with various clinical partners, and one of the biggest concern is always, you know, the ROI, you know, whether it makes sense for them in health economically to use robotic devices, rehabilitation technologies to, you know, perform rehabilitation therapies. So I think consolidation is a good way to streamline and potentially minimize the fragmentation of various form of technologies and possibly reduce the cost and improve the adoption of technologies. Robert, what do you think? What should we do with so many companies producing so many interesting innovations, but all these different innovations are actually also creating confusions for our clinicians?
Yes.
What to choose? A limited budget. What do you think we should do?
Among these thousands of different applications and devices, there are many which are not successful because they're not accepted neither by the patients and or by the therapists and physicians. So what we need to do is, I think, to work together with the users. So first of all, I think we need to understand the real needs and requirements, first from the patient side, then from the clinical side, including the infrastructural and health insurance side, but also from the industrial side. So to understand what is easier and cost efficient to produce. So we have just to collaborate together with all these users to identify the right needs. And that's a close and long process. From the first step, there's not the idea at the beginning, there's a problem at the beginning, and then to develop together solutions, which brings up ideas. And if you do this in the right way, then I'm sure you will get solutions, not plenty, but some. The solutions might be complicated, but if they solve a problem, then it's okay. And if they're not too expensive, it's okay. And then I think we can avoid in the long run the inflation of a number of different useless devices.
Thank you, Robert. I agreed. I think, we have to work as a community, maybe organization like ICAIR, ICAIR, and even like, IHL, UCL, KITE, and ETH, etc. We should all try to look at how we can streamline this process, preventing wastage of limited research grants and repeating the same research, same innovations. Perhaps we can build on what others have built and improve on it and create some form of consolidation so people can actually use what has been done in the past to improve further. Yeah. So maybe Hyung-sun, you want to share a bit from South Korea, some of the experience that you have from the East Asia region. Is this the same challenges that we are facing in Korea in terms of too many technologies, the cost issues, the integration and complexity issue? Is that something that you guys also try to resolve, and what are the solutions that you guys are trying to adopt?
Okay, let me share the comments from clinicians in South Korea. So South Korean engineers developed the rehabilitation devices, and the hospitals in South Korea, they also import the devices developed from foreign countries. And the challenge is the complexity from the clinician's viewpoint is mainly on the user interface. If user interface is difficult to understand, and if there are a lot of parameters to adjust, they feel like it's complex. From engineers' viewpoint, the complexity can be defined differently. So engineers get requests from different clinicians and different type of patients, and the patient response is all different for the same device. That's human nature. So that's the complexity. So data, the problem we have is the data from one hospital cannot be compared directly with the data from the other hospital because they use different devices and different protocols, and the outcomes they evaluated are all clinical outcomes, sometimes the questionnaires. So it's very difficult to deal with the heterogeneity of the patient needs. So that's the complexity we have. I think it's not only in the East Asia, it's all over the world. So I sometimes imagine a humanoid robot. The humanoid robot is becoming popular these days. Humanoid robot therapist taking care of a patient like the conventional, the expert physical therapist to do. Then that's the robotic physical therapist. And then it has to monitor patient in a comprehensive way, like how they talk and how they react to some action, and how their facial expression changes over days. So those all type of information can be quantified, and then the robot may process it and then react more in a homogeneous way. Then that's my dream, but that's long way to go, But that's the complexity we need to deal with. So the standardization of the data might be a challenging point.
Thank you, Hyung-sun. I think you brought up a very interesting topic that perhaps will be our next ICAIR webinar topic, yeah, the humanoid for rehab. But I just want to build on what you just shared from your experience in South Korea. I think Hyung-sun rightly point out, right, many countries are developing technologies domestically and also importing international devices, and then the patient experience are very different for the same device. So we can understand that this is rightfully so, because even if human clinicians, human intervention, this experience can be very different as well, and the different school of thoughts how you perform arm rehab, therapy, lower extremity gait trainings, and some don't even agree how they should perform the same trainings. Not to mention, for robotics, what kind of dosage, intensity, repetitions, what kind of functional training is the best. There are still some debates on this thing. So I guess it will bring to the next topic that maybe Claudio want to lead on, is maybe more on standardization and unified ecosystems. Yeah, maybe I hand over to Claudio. You want to lead this discussion?
Well, yeah, sure. It's a pleasure. I'm not really good at elevating past my experience as a scientist, which in this case we might need. So we might need some more experience from the societal and even philosophical, psychological point of view. So when I hear you guys talking about, oh yes, but the different parts do not talk to each other, the data formats are different. My department here is, well, 20% about robotics, that would be me and my two colleagues, and 80% about image processing and machine learning. So biomedical engineering is mostly that stuff. And they publish a lot and they get a lot of citations because this is super hip now and it's working. And the problem they have is, yes, I need I don't know, MRI scans of as many brain tumors as I can. And so they have to go to all the hospitals in Germany, and every hospital has a different format. And in some cases, the regulation are blocking you. So no, this is the Data Protection Act or the data protection laws in Germany are very strict. Thanks God, I welcome that. Now, in this case, it places a lot of burden on you. From a more technical point of view, I was thinking, what should we do? Build something like ROS, what ROS is for robotics, but for rehabilitation, RIA-HOS, no idea. So that we can at least agree on like an ecosystem in your lab, which extends past your lab, because stuff that gets out of your lab can be immediately understood by a process running the same meta operating system somewhere else. Rui, what is your take on this?
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we need to think about what rehabilitation is really about, and for me, it's about the patient journey, and it's about optimization of outcome for a individual. So it's personal. It will change. It will be different from people, and that's why it makes our case really difficult, and optimization of technologies and process extremely hard, because what we try to do is establish common protocols and standards across all these different rehabilitation devices, and we want to do that because we feel that we want to seamlessly integrate, improve efficiency, and enhance those patients' outcomes by doing so. So you would think about a unified ecosystem, as you have highlighted, would allow for better communication to start with between all of these devices and platforms, patient monitoring tools, and so on. So I think you probably, should consider, from a technical point of view, common protocols for seamless connectivity. How we develop those is something else. So standardized communication and so on. Enhancing how we connect multi-devices, how we integrate them would be another one, and how we use them. And then obviously, thinking about developing unified rehabilitation networks So because, I mean, think about it, the successful interoperability of stroke, for example, stroke rehab, has improved dramatically over the last 25 years, as I remember. And we've seen, you know, improved outcomes by merging multiple assistive technologies. It's not just about the robot. It's about how we take all the tools at our disposal and use them effectively for enhancing the patient outcome. So I think that's where I would like to start with, is thinking about how we develop a global understanding of how this all different tools that are available, being it high tech or low tech, can be integrated and deployed. And at the end of the day, healthcare systems do not care which device is best. And that's what we've focused the last 20 years, and certainly I have. They care about what is the best possible outcome for that specific individual. And I think personally, that's what I would like to spend the next 20 years, is optimizing that process.
That's fine. So if I think of such an ecosystem being shared, so among research labs in the world, I don't see any problem, but that's doable. I mean, in the end, we have ROS. And if my robot uses ROS, then I can reasonably go to another lab in Europe or in the US or in Australia, whatever else, and have it operated by someone else. Now, in this case, we need to guarantee, so if we get a little past the research environment, we probably need to have an ISO certification at some point as far as safety and data protection is concerned, and let alone the different regulations in all countries. So this is, I mean, if we look a little bit past the research environment, that's really gonna be like a huge challenge, which involves more than just research labs. What is your
massive
take?
undertaking.
Sorry?
It's a massive undertaking for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But I agree with you. I mean, the best outcome for our patients is what we're after. This can only bring good to that. Robert, what is your take on all this?
Yes, it would be great to have a ROS for rehabilitation. It would be called ROS, Rehabilitation Operating Systems. But the challenge is the following. In the ROS, it's mainly about the robots. It's not so much about the human in the loop or involved. In rehabilitation, we always have the human, the patient involved. And this is a problem. Because we need, I mean, we have different kind of scores, and nobody knows what the best scores is. It also depends on the goal, if you want to treat just a function or if you want to treat activity or participation in life. And then we have different kind of interventions. And as we said, if we would know the best treatment, then it's easier, but we do not know it yet. So everyone is using different technologies, different scores. It's a mishmash of everything. It's this fragmentation mentioned at the beginning, and that makes it very difficult to standardize something like ROS.
Like I said, it's, yeah, I mean, you touched upon it, right? So I'm no roboticist per se, but I'm still working at the Robotics Institute, the German Aerospace Research Institute, which is one of the leading agency in robotics, among others, in Germany. And as one of the only ones to work with the human in the loop, and people respect you in that case. Why is that the case? Because humans do not behave like robots. They do all sort of crazy stuff that you didn't expect them to do. And now having an operating system which takes care of the patient outcomes, patient safety, patient satisfaction, acceptance. So for instance, monitoring performance, which is an objective measurement. So how fast did you carry out your task? How quickly did you manage? With the acceptance, which is a self-assessment in many cases, so answering questions and gathering answers from patients, that's gonna be tough. My understanding is that when the two things agree, then we have a win. So patient is satisfied and performance increases. Now that's when we're all happy. Not sure when the two things diverge. What is your experience in this, Young-Soon?
Oh, so we are talking about the ecosystem, making ecosystem for rehabilitation technology. And I think
How do you, for one thing, if I may interject, how do you assess that your devices are accepted by the people who use them?
I look at the facial expression from the patient and the clinicians.
But this is and then you have some kind of machine learning or AI to classify the satisfaction. And this is a very interesting topic for the next question. So how does AI come into the picture?
Mhm.
And as far as the rest is concerned, do you still issue? Oh, so, and what is your experience with facial recognition for assessing patient satisfaction and acceptance? This is interesting.
I didn't implement yet, but that's not AI, it's myself. I look at the facial expression from the patient and all guardians of the patient. And I have recently, we developed a robotic device that pulls the cable while the child with cerebral palsy, with crouching gait, they walk on the treadmill. And it's very different from the exoskeleton. And the patient and patient guardian, they have tried the robotic exoskeleton training program, but this is too simple device they have compared to what they experienced before. And I'm in Daejeon City, 2 hours from Seoul, and the patient from Seoul, they drive all the way to Daejeon 2 hours to get 1 hour therapy because they like it a lot.
Right.
The reason they like it, the reason the patient's guardian, the parents of a child like the device was, the reason why she liked it was that her kid worked really hard. The child has to work really hard to get the rehabilitation. It's sweating. That's what the parents like it, and the child, of course, he had to spend a lot of effort to do the exercise. It's hard to do, but after that, they're satisfied. So it's not it cannot be quantified. It's the human feeling or it can be related to human emotion, but that's all can be measured by the vision camera or the microphone, or if we can make a conversation with the patient or patient guardian, then we can somehow know about that. But this is it. Is it what you're asking? I was going to talk about the ecosystem,
Sort of. I mean, yeah, we see here how heterogeneous the questions we pose, even the questions are of completely different nature. So like getting to an integrated framework seems to me like I said, a big challenge. I'd propose to have a quick break. We have a couple questions from the YouTube chat. Mr. Omid Arfe is asking, so what are the best ways to enhance safety in human-robot interaction? He says he or she actually, this person says, using AI for torque trajectory planning a transfemoral prosthesis to personalize torque tracking. I mean, personalized care, this is in prosthetics in particular. This is a big deal, and possibly our ecosystem should take care of that as well. And then he says, adding safety features so I balance safety with efficiency and usability. The quick round of replies. Hyun-soon, what do you have? What do you do to increase your acceptance and safety in your robots?
Okay. So the question is asking about the safety when using the prosthetic device or orthotic device for the limb.
Specifically, this guest in YouTube talks about prosthetics, but I believe the question can be lifted to any system in which, I mean, exoskeleton can be really dangerous, right? If you fall on the ground and you are inside an exoskeleton, then good luck with that. What would be your take on that?
Yeah, early detection of the danger would be very important.
Yeah,
and they can be measured by sensors, but sometimes the accident always happen. So we can use at least we can use some safety stop emergency stuff. We should always have emergency stuff for safety, but we are not talking about the simple technology here. I think we should collect a lot of case reports that the dangerous or some failure happened, and then if we collect enough data, then we can somehow make some strategy to avoid the failure or unsafe situations.
If I may add, from the industry point of view, safety in our industry always comes as the number one top priority. So the device will be rigorously tested, clinically validated, and to make sure that the patient safety always taken into consideration. The human in the loop is the key. So the physicians, the clinicians always have the final say to challenge the patient, to push the limits of the patient, but taking into consideration the safety of the patients. You know, there's a balance, right? If you want to be very safe, the patient to get a challenge. If you risk too much, then you potentially risk injury for the patients. So this, at the moment, the robotics, even the AI, our system just cannot do that. So pretty much from the industry point of view, I think from the research point of view, our robotics, our technologies still require the expertise, the involvement of the clinicians. Yeah.
That is exactly the remark by this person. How can I balance the safety and efficiency and usability? Any further remarks? Yeah.
Thanks. I think it's a very good question. It's very difficult to make, especially knee prostheses or prostheses safe, and even more difficult if you use AI. There's only one company which is selling powered knee prostheses, that's Össur, and that market is lower. They don't sell a lot of devices. And I think the reason is simple, because if you want to walk, I mean, we walk up to 10,000 steps a day without sports. And if you have only 1 per mil of an error, it's too much. You would stumble 10 times a day. And adding AI, it makes it even more complicated because you cannot predict it. And it's hard to get regulative measures through the medical device regulation. So the best thing is not to use AI, or to use at least not black box models, but any kind of shaded gray, white AI, graphical modeling, whatever, to understand what will happen if there's a failure and to design a safer system.
This is my first lecture, actually. And start like, guys, this is not a course about, I used to say machine learning, now I say artificial intelligence because that's the hip term. Remember, that's statistics, so it gets it wrong because it's in its nature once in a million times. And what if that once in a million times is a critical situation and you bump into an SCA, like a serious adverse event? So paradoxically, that tool is decreasing the safety to some extent. Yeah, right. So Mr. or Mrs. Arfe, I'm sorry that we don't have an answer to your question so far. Before I move to the next question, Zen, possibly we can have a round of inspect the one further topic that we set aside beforehand.
Sure. We have a few to talk about. So due to the time, Claudia, do you think we should move to the last one?
Yeah,
so that we have more time?
Why not?
Yeah. So I will move to we have prepared quite a lot of interesting panel discussion topics for the audience. But the first few topics, we have so much discussion, very exciting discussions that we kind of run out of time. So to make sure that we have enough time for the last, I think, rather interesting topic, we decided to move the last topics that we have prepared for you guys. So that is the future trends. So how can we, together develop adaptive robotics and continuous care models that are sustainable, that will be adopted. So to the panelists, how do you envision the next decade of neurorehabilitation with evolving, adaptive, personalized, and even maybe precision-based medicine robotic system? How do you consider will be continuous care? real-time monitoring for the patients may be one of the ways. Are there other ways? Robert obviously felt that AI is complicating the matters, but do we have other ways to advance and to encourage adoption of this technology for more, proactive and personalized treatments? Yeah. So again, we start with the same, round, starting with Ree. You have the toughest challenge. You start first.
I've got two keywords really: transparency and ubiquity. I think we need to make sure we make technologies transparent to the users, that they understand what the technologies are about, what they cannot do, what are the limitations, what you can expect from them. Make them ubiquitous everywhere. I mean, do we really think about things like this now? Smartwatches that are measuring all sorts of vital signs, my heart rate, and so on and so forth. So I think it's thinking about that, how we take advantage of what the Internet of Things and these technologies can do, wearables, and how we make them transparent to the user. So I think it will, the future of rehab will definitely involve adaptive robotics that we talked about. Continuous patient monitoring, I think, is key, and AI interventions need to be taken carefully. I think we need to create a more proactive and personalized treatment paradigm that will enable, obviously, the long-term and home-based rehabilitation, because we haven't really touched on that today. So for me, I would say AI-powered adaptive robotics, that would be a future rehabilitation which will leverage, self-learning of robotic systems that we alluded to earlier on in the early discussion. That evolve with the patient needs. I would say the remote monitoring and continuous care aspect, where you can have wearable devices and potentially AI-driven insights that would, enable, real-time interventions beyond the clinic. And I suppose, is thinking about from episodic to continuous rehabilitation. And so future models should really, in my view, focus on long-term, on data-driven recovery. And these are strategies that should be used for lifelong mobility support and so on, cognitive support. So that's my take. I see the future bright, but I'm optimistic.
Thanks, Rich. I think you brought out some really interesting keywords like home-based rehab, tele rehab, wearable technologies. I think we have our job as engineers and also for researchers, academia, scientists, and also for the industry, our job cut out for us to integrate the current technologies that are already matured, partially in use or already been used for more than decades or so. Rather than looking at very new technology like what Robert mentioned, that we still don't know how to make it work well, we should focus on what we already have and digest it, make it even more seamlessly. And like what Ree mentioned, more data-driven, more personalized. If we can do a good job integrating the VR, the wearable sensors, the exoskeleton robotics for the arms and the legs, I think that will really change, the long-term rehab technologies adoption. So maybe to Robert, what do you think will be the future trends, and what do you think, what should we do to create this continuous care and real-time patient and,
Yes.
Yeah,
I think I fully agree with the things Rui said, that we have to do this continuous monitoring everywhere remotely in order to produce a continuum. What does this continuum of care mean? First, it means that we're able to transfer all the information of the patient from the acute phase over the subacute chronic to the home phase. And if they're staying disabled or impaired, that we can go ahead with taking this data. At the moment, it's very difficult for a therapist who's applying remote therapy to understand what happened with the patient in the hospital, for example, because the data is not well transferred yet. And then if we have all data and information about the patients, we should use it for the future generations of patients so we can learn. And that's the idea of all this machine learning stuff and big data. We can learn, for example, from the therapy using different devices, what is more effective, what is more accepted, and use it for future generations of patients. And this also refers to the use of assistive devices in daily life. So if you know what is the acceptance of exoskeleton for home use or a prosthesis for daily use, how much does it affect not only the health status, but especially also the inclusion in the society, the work, the possibility to work, the possibility to be part of a family, to be happy. And these things can all be merged to one continuum if you have all the data and the right ways how to transfer the data in the directions.
I would
Thanks,
have a
Robert.
question from YouTube which connects to that. Nur Azab Inti Hamzed asks, I noticed that most engineers involved in rehabilitation robotics have little training on human physiology and physiotherapy. And being the driver of the technology, how can improve this issue among our robotics engineers? I could not agree more than this. What is your take on that?
If I may briefly just add a few points, I
Do
think
you agree
that's what
that the engineers, for example, have better knowledge in physiology and so on? Yeah, I agree as well, but we need a certain understanding of the clinical context and problems, and that includes also knowledge about physiology and anatomy. But we cannot make physicians out of engineers. It's more important to bring them together, that they speak the same language, and we need some work sharing still.
exactly. Yeah, I agree with Robert. I think we cannot do everything. That's why we have to have multidisciplinary approach to work together. So thanks, Robert, for sharing the last point. Maybe Hyung-sun, you want to also address the future trends in your view?
Yeah, I agree with Robert that the transformable data is important, especially for stroke patients. They undergo the acute and subacute and chronic phase. And the first 6 months is very important for the neuroplasticity. If they do wrong therapy, for example, not the best therapy during that time, they lose the possibility of recovery for the rest of the time. So if possible in the future, we expect to have some predicting system if the patient history data and the brain imaging after the stroke, for example, is given, then we can AI or expertise system can suggest what will the best technology that the person should use. And then the patient undergo the program. And then during that time, we collect data and we improve the AI model or predicting system to be able to estimate in a more accurate way. In that way, the neurorehabilitation can be better in the future. And also, I think in that way, the brain-computer interface may play a very important role because it all deals with the brain. The neurorehabilitation starts from the brain, So we should definitely focus more on the brain-computer interface to be able to interpret what's happening in the brain during the process of the rehabilitation. That's what I think.
Thank you, Hyung-sun. I think we are running out of time. I just want to quickly add on to what Robert and Hyung-sun mentioned. I think definitely the continuous monitoring, the continuum of care, transferring the right information to the right people so they can do the right therapy with the big data is a very important thing. I think these are really exciting big topics that, all our expert speakers have shared with us in the limited time. So I think such conversations, such collaboration.
One last question through the YouTube chat, which sort of crowns the discussion. Question is, getting exoskeletons and exosuits for home use for patients is a major effort in the field. What are the major bottlenecks in research to reach that goal? So having an exoskeleton at home is a big deal, right?
Yes, yes.
A usable exoskeleton is a big deal.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I think that
Yes.
we need to think about how diverse those interactions are, and that they're not confined to a clinical laboratory. So technology in the wild, I often call it, is a big challenge, and it's a challenge that we should face head on.
And that includes also
I may-
the usability in terms of putting on, putting off, and using it. I mean, they are paralyzed often of have weakened muscles, so it's hard for them. If they need support from someone else, then it's questioning already the use of such assistive device.
Yes,
And
I agree with Robert and Rick. You know, the thing is that from the industry point of view, is the managing the expectations. A lot of the users, they saw their exoskeleton, they imagined from the movie, like, Iron Man, this is what I need. But when they actually have the exosuit and then they wear it, the expectations is mismatched. There's a disappointment. Sorry, Hyung-sun, you were saying?
My thought is simple, the cost effectiveness. So is it worth paying for it? So if it's cheap, very cheap, maybe $100, then everybody can buy. But it's not possible. They have to pay a lot of money or insurance pays, then it should be worth paying for that.
There's such a long, horrible story in prosthetics about that. How much does a 50,000 euro device bring me more than a 5,000 body power prosthesis bring to me? Long-standing controversy, and we are not yet out of that. Now.
Oh, Claudio, I have this discussion before. How much is $100,000 exoskeleton versus a $200 wheelchair?
Right.
Right. So, if I may just wrap up our discussion, I think this conversation is very important, and our expert speakers will be with us at the ICAIR conference at the Rehab Week 2025 in Chicago, hosted by the Cheryl Ryan Ability Lab. So I invite all our audience, if you can join us at the Rehab Week in Chicago, you can listen to Robert, Hyung-sun, Ri, and Claudio sharing their expertise in the symposium, workshops, panels, and the various tracks that we have organized for you. You can check out our link. Our various associations, Motors Academy, ISAT, ICAIR will be there. So we look forward to very active discussion. I think this is important for us to drive the future of rehabilitation technologies. So, Claudio, for you to wrap up.
Well, that's been great fun as usual. And I'm always glad to see that there's more open questions and answers. And I guess this is the idea behind research, right? So with this, I use the occasion to remind our audience, we will have another number 7. So the webinar number 7 in about 2 months. So end of April, beginning of May. The topic is still TBD, but it'll be extremely interesting as well, just as interesting as this one has been. So thank you all. Thanks to our speakers and to Zen KOH for co-moderating, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.